This week's episode is brought to you by a night at the Walt Disney Family Museum. Come see me, Jeff Heibuck, Keith Gluck, and Bob Gurr. Put on some great presentations, share some funny videos, and have a general good time. For more information, go to thedisneyproject.com.
Communicore Weekly. Come on and get geeky. Bob around boats and five-legged goats. Communicore Weekly. You might get some freaky. Waiting all week. I'm sure you already know this. Greatest online show. Welcome to season 3.
Hello and welcome to Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show, and of course, home of the world's first pair of independently born identical twins. I'm George.
And I am Jeff, and I don't even know what to say for this introduction. Generally,
I just wondered, why did your name come first?
What do you mean?
In the commercial. It was Jeff Heimbach, Keith Gluck, and Bob Gurr.
Well, because I was the one giving the commercial.
Yeah, but shouldn't you be deferential to Keith because he's so much older than you?
It's funny you say that. Because
well, okay,
we said that in a hit when I was on the Disney project last time, and he was unhappy. He said something about being at Disneyland in the 80s, and I said, "Oh, what were you, 20 at the time?" And he got really mad.
Yes, that's a great allusion. No, not a magic trick.
No, not magic tricks. They're called illusions, Michael.
None here. So, it's okay. You can call him Mr. Manager. So,
no, just manager. George.
Just the manager. Just the manager. So
we've rambled for about non-Disney things way too long at this point.
But there's a connection because Bob Gurr might be showing up in the history segment. I mean, not personally. We might.
Oh, by name. Him. By name, you mean?
Yeah, by name.
Okay, I'll accept that. Yes. Spoiler: Bob Gurr does show up in the history segment. So let's go hear kind of what he has to say.
It's time for Disney History.
You know, sometimes not every attraction that Disney puts out is a winner. Sometimes, as much as they try, they just fail to live up to their expectations and they need to be retired to that great theme park in the sky. But sometimes, just sometimes, those rides are brought back from the dead in a new form and revitalized for a new age with new technology. And that's precisely the type of attraction we're going to talk about today. The one and only flying saucers from Disneyland. And for those with a lot of luck and even a little patience, the attraction could be quite rewarding, but for others, it was kind of a total wash.
Yeah, so back in 1960, our friend Bob Gurr was assigned to work on a duck bump attraction. Now, what is a duck bump, you may ask? It's not a slight bump that you see on a pregnant mama duck, though that would make the most sense. The duck bump rides featured boats, and by boats, I actually mean a large inner tube, but boats nonetheless with a pivoting motor in the middle that a guest could pilot around a pond. It was an extremely popular type of water ride in the Midwest, and Walt, being the innovative genius that he was, wanted to improve upon the concept and bring it to Disneyland. The attraction was meant to be a replacement for the failed Phantom boats.
Now, of course, being Disney, improved upon the idea was. Now, no longer would it have been plates in the water. No. It would have to be a hovercraft, because that's the next logical step, obviously. So, Bob Gurr was quoted as saying, "In those days, everybody had a hovercraft project. It was a neat idea, a big buzz at the time. A lot of people were working on it simultaneously." Now, even before the idea came to Walt, Wed had been talking about developing some kind of flying saucer type ride. And in fact, one day there was a German salesman who was, knocking door to door to theme park companies as they do. And he brought a small propeller powered hovercraft. And Walt asked Bob to check it out, and he did. And he decided there really was no danger in it, and it would be a lot of fun because hovercrafts, how can you go wrong?
Of course. That sounds good to me. Wait a minute, how's the research coming on the Communicore Weekly hovercraft?
Oh, it's going slowly.
Oh, okay, as expected. Okay, well, moving along, researching the idea a bit more, Bob discovered that Aero Development, an amusement park ride manufacturer, was also developing their own hovercraft. And Bob noticed that Aero's concept of moving the motive force from out of the vehicles to under the floor was a very novel idea. Pretty much making it work like a gigantic air hockey table, and let's face it, who doesn't like air hockey?
People who hate fun. That's who don't
unless
like
you're
air
losing.
Hockey. Yeah.
Or you get your fingers smashed.
So therefore, I'm okay.
You don't ever get your fingers smashed?
No, because I know how to play correctly.
Okay, well, anyway. So Raj Bragi worked off that concept even more, figuring out that they could move a 2,000-pound payload if they had an air jet below with valves that allowed the air to come up through the holes in the floor. And where could they get such air jets?
Well, it just so happened that a whole bunch of surplus actuators from the second stage of a Jupiter missile came onto the market at the time, because let's face it, that's some pretty good timing if you ask me. So WED bought all of them and immediately put them to use on this project, and they failed pretty quickly. Why? Why did they fail? Well, because the actuators were only used for about 5 seconds for pitch control during the second stage of the Jupiter missiles, and then the job was done, that was it. Meanwhile, Disney was trying to use them for much more than they were actually meant for, figuring that they cycled them more than 7 million times, so essentially they broke them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Walt asked Admiral Joe Fowler to work with Aero Development on a prototype. So work began right away with, Can Do. Joe Fowler, his nickname. Anyway, not long after, the prototype was complete, and Walt tested it, and it worked. Then the attraction went into full production. Bob Gurr designed the actual flying saucer himself, receiving a patent for his efforts. As he says, he is now recognized by the United States government as a flying saucer inventor, a title which is way too awesome of a title to hold. 64 of these single-seat saucers were then put into production.
Now, to power these saucers, 4 giant blowers were mounted below the ground to maintain the air pressure within a complex 16,000 square foot network of air ducts with holes and valves. And as one of the flying saucers passed over a valve, the air pressure would become imbalanced and the valve would open. And this open valve would provide the lift. And the constant air pressure would quickly close the valve once the saucer has moved on. And if that's too complex to understand, basically it was powered by magic. That's how it worked.
So they could have called it Flying Sorcerers.
Yes, Flying Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom.
I like that.
See?
I like that. So,
Synergy.
Okay. Synergy. Brought to you by Communicore Weekly. Okay. So pilots then could steer their saucers by leaning in whatever direction they wanted. And yes, I just did lean in my chair.
You actually just leaned, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
okay, so I'm going to try sit still. If you were to lean forward, and air would escape out of the back of the saucer's skirt, pushing you forward. Lean back, and you moved back. Seems easy enough, right? Well, not so much. If you moved either way too much, you stalled. So sometimes adults would just wind up sitting there, unable to move just the right amount, while young kids would be bouncing all over the place.
Now, Imagineer Bill Martin came up with his innovative loading and unloading system from a ride that he saw at Riverside Park in Chicago. Now, the ride in Chicago consisted of a bunch of little boats circulating in a rectangular-shaped pond. And when the ride was over, a bridge would push the people off the pond, not off the boats, but in the boats, push them off to the edge of the pond, letting the next group loose into the pool. If they pushed them into the pond, that would be really mean.
It's kind of...
I should have rephrased that. I apologize.
Theme park is this?
It was a water park.
It's one where the employees pay to go to work every day. Yay. Okay, so Bill Martin, his fabulous idea was improved upon. The flying saucers, well, he improved upon the concept. The flying saucers were placed on an oval arena that was separated by 2 halves by the loading platform itself. Movable piers unfolded from the loading platform, cutting the arena into quarter sections. And as the piers moved, they swept 16 of the saucers tightly against the loading platform. While this was happening, 16 other saucers would be loose on the other half of the arena. Each side was operated independently, and this system allowed for 32 saucers loading, while 32 saucers were operating at any one time.
Now, during the installation and testing, the attraction was totally plagued with problems. So, while Bob Gurr's hollow saucer worked really well at Aero Development, it didn't work so well in the park. The testing ground that they used for it was actually only 4 feet deep, but at the park, it was 9 feet deep. So, since air squashes and compresses, there was way too much lag between when the air left the system till when it hit the saucers, and it took way too long to build up the necessary pressure for it to work correctly, so it just pretty much didn't work ever.
Well, despite that, the flying saucers opened in Tomorrowland on August 8, 1961. And due to the mechanical issues, it was the first Disneyland attraction that failed to open on schedule. The attraction was very, very popular with the public, but plagued by maintenance issues. Bob Gurr said, the pressure under the floor would drop so low that all the valves would open at once, releasing the air beneath. This caused a window-rattling sonic boom, and the saucers would drop to the ground. Due to these operational issues, the saucers closed on September 5th, 1966.
Now, Bob Gurr felt that with several more levels of production and testing, and with a bit more technology, they could have gotten it right the first time. And alas, in some ways, they did just that a couple of years later, or more than a couple of years later, many years later. Let me phrase that, I apologize. Luigi's Flying Tires opened in June 2012 in Cars Land at California Adventure, and the concept of the ride is pretty similar to the Flying Saucers, but it's a little more technologically updated. But much like the Saucers, it still suffers some of the same problems, but it's still a pretty fun ride, and I enjoy it, and I guess I'm happy that it's here now, but it's still an issue.
Well, my big question is, what exactly do you feed Luigi's Flying Tigers?
You feed them whatever they want, probably meat, lots of meat. That's a callback joke to like a way earlier episode. That's like a callback to episode 17 or 18. Only true cadets will understand that joke.
Yes, yes.
If you got that joke, let us know. I'm going to send you a button.
He's a nerd, he's a geek, but we all like to hear him speak. So listen up to the words from his speech. It's George's Book of the Week.
Well, sort of continuing our look at the 1964-65 World's Fair, this week's book is the 1964-1965 New York World's Fair Images of America series by Bill Cotter and Bill Young. And I know everybody's probably seen one of these Images of America books, so they're short, the small paperback books loaded with photos, and usually do a detailed history of a specific area. Okay, so first up, a little bit about the two Bills. Bill Cotter actually worked at Disney from 1976 to 1982 in financial management, but he really is a self-stated Disney fanatic. He actually created a film club at Disney where they screened films and television shows. And this led Cotter to write The Wonderful World of Disney Television, which we did cover on an earlier episode. He's also written many other World's Fair books, but we'll get to those later. And Bill Young is a computer programmer and has been into the fair since he was 8 years old. Arcadia, the publisher, contacted him about doing a fair book, which caused him to reach out to Cotter. Young also runs NYWF64, New York's World Fair 64.com, which is one of the foremost sites on the venerated fair. So really, who better to write a new book on the 64-65 World's Fair than these two guys? Okay, so what sets this book apart immediately, even from the other ones they've published, is the use of full-color photos throughout the book. It is absolutely spectacular and really a significant treat to see a lot of these pavilions and the people and the fashions in full color. Okay, so the book has 7 chapters, and I think it's kind of important to go over all of them in detail. No, I'm just kidding. The first one is a general tour, which has a large number of photos that don't go into a specific area. A lot of overviews, aerial shots, photos of trams, and these really cool strollers. You guys got to check out the strollers. International area has some amazing shots of the internationally sponsored pavilions. These are the ones that will make most people think of World Showcase at Epcot, especially the Belgian Village in Japan.
Waffles.
Waffles, exactly. We'll talk about those later. The industrial area showcases a lot of extremely forward-thinking architecture, very pre-reminiscent, so to speak, of what we'll see in Future World. This is also where Progress Land and Small World were located. Also, they've got the Traveler's Insurance Building, which had a red roof. Always makes me think of the Legion of Doom from the Justice League. Always. And I know that's not a Marvel property, but still.
It's still awesome.
It's still there. And then you had the federal and state area, obviously geared towards the United States. They're pretty random. Some of them are really well designed, some of them aren't. But pay special attention to the state of California. And you'll also find Lincoln in this area. Not in California.
I was going to say in California?
No, he's in the Illinois Pavilion.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the transportation area, this is an odd mix. You had some massive pavilions like the Ford Magic Skyway and GM's Futurama. The Lowenbrow Gardens were there, which is where I'd expect you'd find Gary, Ron, and Tucker hanging out. Then the last big area was the Lake Amusement area. And it was another area with a crazy mix. It was so far removed from the entrances that many pavilions simply didn't last long. The monorail was there too. There was a log flume ride that cost 75 cents in 1964. And translated into today's dollars, that would be $5.64 a ride.
That's a lot of money
crazy.
for a ride.
Yes, it is.
At the time,
yes, it
was nothing. but now that's a lot of money.
Well, wait until you get the Communicore Weekly Goat around.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's going to cost way more.
Way more. And the last section is night scenes, and it's a small but impressive section. Lots of great photos of different pavilions at night. And I know I sort of just explained what was in the book, but really it's a spectacular look. And I poured through it, went through it twice, looking at the photos, studying it, texting Jeff, going, look at this picture. Doesn't this picture on this page look like something we see at Disney today? And, you know, it's a great work that really adds to the World's Fair literature.
If I can jump
itself.
in for 1 second, just to reiterate what you said earlier, the book is in color, and their previous 2 books on the fair were all in black and white. So actually seeing these photographs in color, to me, brings them to life a lot more, and you can like get a more vivid sense of what the fair was like at that time, because you're seeing it, you know, in living color, what these people saw. So that was really, really cool. Tons of great images. I loved how they broke it up. I loved all the photos they shared. There were some cool Disney ones as well. I'm not gonna lie, of course. That's why we're looking to begin with. But I recommend it highly.
I think we both do. We love it. So grab your copy of it today. It is the 1964-1965 New York's World Fair by Bill Connor and Bill Young. And when you're looking online or in the bookstore, it's got a mostly green cover, and it's the latest one.
What we liked, what we didn't like, Yates and the Booze. 60-second review.
So we both received review copies of Marvel's Thor, The Dark World, sometimes affectionately called Thor 2.
I like to call it Thor 2 because The Dark World just seems like a long title to me.
It depends if we run out of time and space. We'll call it Thor 2. So this is a film I saw in the theater because I got to take my 10-year-old to every Marvel superhero film or I will be a bad father. And we both enjoyed it a lot. I walked away going, don't know if I liked it as much as the first Thor movie, which I guess we'll call Thor 1.
Sure. Thor the first?
We'll go from there. Thor the first.
That would make the most sense.
But it's got Hiddleston in it. And you can't
I
go
love
wrong
Hiddleston, man.
Without him can't go wrong with him in the film. So
I just need to say then, while we're talking about him, that was one of my main qualms with the film, is that there was, to me, too little Hiddleston. I mean,
well, he was a lot. If you look
at the end, he was there a lot, but I feel like he wasn't involved, you know, as much in the first half because it obviously takes place just after the Avengers. So he's sitting, you know, in prison essentially for the first half of the film. But
that's true.
I know you just said you really enjoyed the film, but not as much as Thor the first. But I turned it off going, you know, it was okay.
It
was okay.
Yeah, it's one of those films where sure you can watch it after just watching Thor, but so much more is added to it if you've watched, you know, the 3 Iron Man films even. You know, have
if you know the scope of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you mean?
Yeah, it adds so much to the story itself. And I'll admit, watching it the second time on Blu-ray, I enjoyed it so much more. The jokes were there a little bit better for me, so maybe you need a second viewing.
It was kind of uneven to me. I thought, you know, again, I thought it was more jokey in tone in the second half of the film than the first half. The first half seemed a lot more serious.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought, what's his name? I thought Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor, was very good as the bad guy with the name that I don't remember.
The Dark Elf Mishnagala.
Yeah, that dude.
Like that. But yeah, I thought, not that I'm going to say this is the first failing of Marvel's, you know, because it's still a great film.
Yeah,
you know,
I still enjoyed it.
I still liked it so much better than a lot of the other superhero action films that we've seen. But so it's, you know, it does look good. It sounds good. You know, I really paid a lot more attention to the music in the themes within the orchestration. Thought that was really well done. You know, I enjoyed it. I think people should, you know, keep it as part of the Marvel series. Definitely.
Plus, cool cameo at the end of the film. Not gonna spoil it. Actually, there was a cameo in the middle of the film too with Loki that he did that I thought was quite hilarious.
Yes, that was really well done. Really well done.
But extras.
I did get a chance to take a look at the extras. There was a really long look at Marvel's Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which looks really dark,
very
and really
excited,
spectacular.
Very excited.
And it's got Scarlet.
Enough said about that.
Should we take a moment?
What, to bow our
To
heads
let everybody think about Scarlet?
Sure. I mean, I'm sure not all of our listeners are into Scarlet like we are, but I mean,
We'll forgive them this one time.
okay.
So, but then there's a really a longer one called A Brother's Journey about Thor and Loki, which is about 30 minutes or so, and it really talks about how they brought the characters together beforehand, the chemistry they have, and there's a pretty interesting surprise about Tom Hiddleston that I will not ruin. That you get to see in that featurette.
It's been on the internet already, that surprise, so you may know already, but we won't say it anyway.
Okay, I won't say it anyways, just in case.
Still good.
And then Scoring Marvel's Thor, I thought was nice just to talk about the music, but the coolest one, the feature, and you can't talk anything about it, was All Hail the King. You know, they do these fantastic Marvel one-shots that they release on the disc, which are short 10-minute little mini episodes. One of the first ones we saw was when Agent Coulson goes to get Thor's hammer the first time.
Yes.
And then there was a great one associated with Captain America, and this one is fantastic.
They're all wonderful. They're great little short Marvel films, and to me, I think they're really allowing some filmmakers to explore this universe a little better in these short little segments, and that's pretty brave of them. I think that hats off to Marvel for trusting them to do that.
Oh, definitely. I think it's worth it alone to grab the film to add it to your collection, especially if you've got the other Marvel films and you don't want to buy that giant $500 shield
the
case.
suitcase thing for the phase 1, because there'll be something else for phase 2.
Exactly, probably a Tesseract or something.
No, the Tesseract was in the phase 1 suitcase.
Oh, that's right. So I only got to see it on the interwebs.
I don't know what's going to be in phase 2, but
they didn't
regardless.
send us a preview copy. Maybe like an 8.5 or 8x10 glossy of Scarlett Johansson.
Okay, signed, personalized.
I could do that
with her phone number.
Ooh.
Anyway, we blue sky. It's not going to happen. So let's
that's
stop
true.
talking.
So we need to stop talking about it now. So
regardless,
I think
get it.
I think we both liked the film. I enjoyed it much more the second time. I know my 10-year-old still loved it. Thought it was fantastic. He was glued to the set the whole time, even though he knew what was going to happen. Liked the humor, the interplay with the characters. They're growing. So hey, I think we should.
Plus, it's got a doctor in it. How can you go wrong? Really?
That's true.
Really?
That's
I mean,
true.
like I said, I found it was still enjoyable. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the first one or any of the other Marvel films. To me, I know some people are saying that Iron Man 2 was like their least favorite of all the Marvel films. To me, this was probably my least favorite of all the Marvel films, but I still found it enjoyable. I would watch it again, and we think you guys should too. So maybe give it a shot.
Sometimes you might see it, sometimes you don't. Hey, look, what's that? It's a five-legged goat.
So at Space Mountain at Disneyland Paris, there's probably one of the most bizarre and immature five-legged goats that we have ever seen before. George is already laughing, so it's good. So as you're about to enter the loading station for the ride, just before you go down the set of stairs, there's a sign for the Baltimore Gun Club. And the sign features a large cannon and a slogan in Latin across the bottom reading, and again, I apologize, my Latin is just as bad as my French, Ad Luna Inflatula Gloria. Actually, that wasn't so bad. Anyway,
that was pretty good.
Nothing too weird about that, right? Well, you'd be wrong. The actual quote from Jules Verne is Ad Luna Inflamma Gloria, and that means to the moon in a blaze of glory. But this sign, it doesn't say that. So while flatuna isn't Latin for anything, it's actually a slang term for something. So the sign Ad Luna Inflatuna Gloria translates to roughly to the moon in a fart of glory. How immature are these people? Really?
Go ahead. Immature? I mean, like, who are we to judge?
So it's like we wrote the sign. That's exactly what it is.
Exactly. So, okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching and listening to another episode.
Yeah, be sure to leave us a comment and rate us on iTunes.
Yep, and you can email us at communicoreweekly@gmail.com. And just a reminder, we're still taking submissions for our unofficial what is a group of five-legged goats called?
We've received quite a number of
Yes,
submissions
we have.
already, and they're hilarious.
Yes, we have. We're very excited. So
we'll
there's
talk
still
about those
time
on the
to
mailbag
enter.
show, I think.
So email us at communicoreweekly@gmail.com with your thoughts.
Yes, and be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Communicore Weekly.
You can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at ImagineNerding, and he's at Jeff Heimbuck.
And of course, you can call us on the Communicore Weekly Goat line at 424-785-4628.
And don't forget, Communicore Weekly the musical is still out there. If you haven't heard it, we guarantee it will change your life somehow.
But mostly in an alternate timeline.
Exactly. And you can pick up your copy of the musical on Amazon, CD Baby, and iTunes. For Jeff Heimbuck, I'm George Taylor.
And for George Taylor, I'm Jeff Heimbuck. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll see you next time on Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show